Hello and welcome to another episode of Be the Love to Awaken Our Souls. Thank you again so much for tuning in this week. I'm Stacy Musial.
And I am Brenda Carey, and we are your co-hosts and souls on the journey. And we are on a mission to raise the consciousness of humans and the planet, and we need your help. Please spread the word to your family and friends and join us every week. Consider becoming a Patreon supporter or a sponsor to help with the operating costs like editing and the many hours we spend creating these shows with quality guests and content. And if you have resonated with our mission, support us in a way that raises your vibration to love.
And if it feels safe for you, I'd like to begin to invite you to get centered with us. I'd like to begin by inviting you to take a beautiful cleansing breath in through your nose and out through your mouth, releasing anything that is keeping you from being present. And take another deep breath in through your nose, breathing in calm, peaceful, loving energy, and breathing out anything you're ready to release. And take one more breath in through your nose, breathing in light and love for yourself. And imagine breathing that light and love and send it back to all of humanity, remembering that you always, always have your breath to come back to.
So the past about 3 episodes on Be the Love podcast have been a really interesting ride, some definitely deep dive soul healing. We focused on ancestral and DNA healing, and we had 3 guests in particular that really shared their experiences, whether it was with physical pain and ancestral healing, how ancestral patterns show up for individuals, and the Akashic records. So Stacy and I are going to just guide you through some of our thoughts and things that we have really worked through with ancestral healing and what the benefits that we have found for ourselves personally and also the people that we work with.
Mm-hmm. This is such a beautiful topic that I think, can be also kind of a little maybe daunting and maybe elusive because, we're working with these ancestral patterns and, we're also working with our own energy. And so what are we, coming into as far as the different patterns that are showing up and how we can truly heal them? Are they from this lifetime or previous lifetimes? And it's something that, we can really do a lot of work on, especially when we're noticing these patterns continuing to come up and we're noticing that maybe some of the work that we've done in our own lives haven't quite gotten to where we need to, but then we start seeing the patterns in our families and how they've carried forward through generation after generation after generation. And then how we can truly empower ourselves to not only heal those from the previous the past generations, but how we can even heal them from our future generations, because it's really all just energy, right? Mm-hmm. We are working with the energetic lines of all our ancestors and future generations. And, as we're also working with the energy of the parallel lives that we're working with. So really like connecting with all of that is so powerful to think about and like how we can really make a difference.
It is really powerful. And I think one of the big takeaways that I had over the previous 3 episodes, and if our listeners haven't listened to the ones by Elizabeth Kipp and Sarah V, and also Morgan Rockwell, definitely check those out. Really interesting conversations. But I started just noticing really how cyclical time really is. It really challenged me to not look so linearly at time. Like I am just a future planner by nature. Like I like to move forward. I don't like to look much in the past. I just like to have goals set up for myself because it's energizing for me. And I still find in that process that, yes, as I'm trying to move forward and change the legacy of the past, for not only for myself, but for my daughters as well, it's really interesting how I'm now looking at time as even more like it just emulates this circle of all that is, as opposed to, well, that was the past, this is the present, future's, going to come. And I think in this realm of energy, of ancestral healing, we really get the opportunity to take a step back and examine our subconscious beliefs, like how we operate, how that has been flowing through for who knows how many generations, and how it's all happening in this very synchronistic time that's not necessarily linear.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's so expansive and exponential in the way that, we are our our minds are so taught to think linearly.
Mm-hmm.
But when we step out into this move out of the mental constructs, we open up to that quantum energy, we can truly tap into that that energy that is more expansive, and how it begins to, like, each affects, the other. And, and how, like, our genes are passed down. So the DNA, right? So you've epigenetics, it says we can turn on genes, through lifestyle, and so we don't have to necessarily express all the genes. But if things are being passed down through the lines of each generation, we might unconsciously pick up these old patterns, right? That we don't know, like a mother's egg is passed down to her daughter, and so the granddaughter is essentially carrying the grandmother's egg, and so on and so forth. And so think about the energy that is stored in that egg, and how much that is passed down, and that, we don't know what we don't know, right? And so we're really like, we have a small fraction of knowledge about this. So it's really, a deeper knowing, and like, what are we carrying forward with us, and that what we can truly, work on healing and seeing those patterns that have been passed down through the
Yeah.
lineages.
I think one of the stories that really stuck with me, and I can't remember which guest it was, but she talked about how the 3 generations of rats where they did experiments, and like the first generation was fed something sour or something like that and then shocked. And then how that, even though the next 2 generations of rats wouldn't be shocked, but they would have an aversion to that sour taste or whatever that they were fed along with being shocked. And I thought to myself, oh, not saying that we're exactly like rats, but it just brought this awareness of, wow, what did my great grandmother, or even, great great grandmother, what was her, what was in her that is now also in me, even though that was someone, I vaguely know my great grandmother, but definitely not, two greats past. And so that was a really interesting awareness of like, wow, I wonder what aversions or things that I resist. And I think that's how, at least for me, and also for some of the clients that I coach, when I start to notice resistance for even small things, like, for example, I had shared a woman, like, we were trying to get her to not eat throughout the whole day. She just would constantly graze and eat throughout the whole day. And so when I asked her, like, give your digestive system a break and just rest. And there was huge resistance to that. And initially she's like, I don't know why that's so hard. She's like, conceptually, it's not. But for me to actually follow through and do it, she just felt like it wasn't hers. And I think that's sometimes how those ancestral patterns can come up. Like when we feel the resistance, it can also come up in pain, in belief systems. For me, on a personal level, like working with worthiness, the women in my past really, obviously they didn't have as many opportunities as I do now. But still the mindset is just really ingrained in of, oh, I'm not worthy, is a very common theme that I knew I grew up with. Maybe not consciously, but was probably fed into more than I even realize.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to think how much really is passed down that we're,
Right.
don't realize. And, that brings me to like my, story that I wanted to share too, because this is a really, something that happened to me most recently is I actually had a reading with Morgan Rockwell, our previous guest on the Akashic Records. And so that really started it, but I went in, went in with the intention of wanting to heal my teeth grinding. I've been grinding my teeth for as long as I can remember, and I've done everything I can think of, that the human mind can conceptualize. And, emotionally, I've done emotional clearings and, also wearing a mouth guard, just like all kinds of different things. But I had never really looked at it from an Akashic record or ancestral healing pattern before. And so I had this reading with her, and it brought up this childhood memory and where I didn't feel safe enough to speak my truth. And so we did some clearing around that. And, she brought me into this beautiful place, and I had my guides and healers there. And so I could still feel that, it didn't quite get to the root because that was still in this lifetime. And I had a sense that it was from an ancestral pattern. And so last weekend after this session, so that kind of sparked the pattern or the process of this healing. And last weekend, I had the opportunity to sit with ayahuasca with this tribe from Brazil. And so I was in ceremony with this intention, and what the grandmother ayahuasca showed me was that I had been storing this anger and resentment in my jaw from my mother, from my grandmother, from my great grandmother, and this whole line of the lineage of women women who did not feel like they could speak their truth, and they were silenced and did not feel like they had the ability to speak. And this is, I think a generational thing, but it was also, women in general, like haven't been able to speak their truth, or there wasn't a safety with that for many, many years, at least, my line of lineage. And so I was holding on to all that. So during the ceremony, I was given this message, but I was also I was given this message of that, and then I was able to release the energy that was stored in my jaw through this deep breathing and transmuting of the energy that was there. And it just like, and I could feel the energy of ayahuasca working on my jaw. And ever since then, like I have felt this release. Like I haven't had this tightness like I was having. I was having this like my jaw was feeling even more and more tight like than usual. So it was like really making me aware of this. And so it was pretty profound at like the level of healing. And so that's where I'm at right now with it. And so I feel like, I'll know as time goes on if there's more healing. There's, healing happens in layers. So I feel
Sure.
like we're always on this journey, but that was a really profound shift for me and through my own ancestral patterns.
Right. What a deep awareness and so healing on many levels. And you also brought up a really good point is, yes, I know we tend to think of ancestral healing as being our own ancestral line, like a bloodline, but that I don't think is necessarily the case when we think in terms of spirit, and we're all connected. We're all in unity. And you talk about, women's voices being suppressed. And that has been, a history over how many generations passed down. And I think that's also another aspect to just bring to our awareness. Like maybe it's not even just my family lineage, but as a collective, as a whole, like, and, part of our mission, for this podcast is raising the vibration of humans, all humans, and the planet. And I think ancestral healing can really be a core piece of that, and not saying, someone has to be all in and do all the things, but just to have an awareness of where we've come from, not saying that we have to stay stuck there, and a willingness to move out of some of those lower vibrational patterns, whether it is teeth grinding or, having a sense of low self-worth, or however it shows up. But I wanted to circle back to one of our interviews where when someone has this knowing of like, it just doesn't feel like mine. That's also, I think, another key takeaway when there's some type of ancestral component to our healing. When someone's like, I have, whether it's physical pain issues or mental, emotional struggles, whatever that might be, but it feels so much more than just mine. And I think that can be another like signal that, that ancestral healing might come into play, whether it's through our own ancestral line or more as a collective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think, you make two really beautiful points. The first one that I wanted to comment on was that, as we are doing this healing work, and we are healing, it's because it's not linear, right? So when we're doing our work, we are spreading that energy outward. And that was actually an image I received from my ayahuasca journey, was that like, as I'm doing this work where it's kind of like this network of community and healing and giving everyone this permission to heal. And we're, raising the vibration as we're all doing this work, whether you're sitting with ayahuasca or other plant medicine or not, right? If you're doing the work, you're doing the healing work for people, and it's moving the energy. And so whether you know it or not, it's really it's contagious. It's in lack of better words, but it's all because we're spreading that love, we're spreading that permission to heal and to look at things, these wounding that once we might have like felt shame around, and now we're able to speak it and normalize it because it's all part of our collective energy that we are really working to heal. And I forgot about the second point I wanted to make.
All right, maybe it'll circle back at some point.
I think so. But that was like, a really big takeaway for me is, this, how important to do our work and really recognize that, it's really powerful, and whether or not it's ours or, or someone else's, whether it came from a lineage or, is ours in this lifetime, we have the responsibility to look at it. We don't have to take fault in it, but we do have the responsibility to begin that healing journey.
Right. And I love how you say taking responsibility, because there's probably also been some times in my life, but with other people where they do stay stuck, or where they say, well, that's just my family lineage, or that's just my genes. And it's almost like used as an excuse to not take the responsibility to do the work. And although, yes, it can be challenging, it can be, just painful. That's where I think support is so important, and finding someone that can help you move the energy, like you mentioned, so it doesn't stay stuck, so we don't stay stuck. And that, I think, can be a really subconscious belief, like, oh, well, this is just the way it is. I think that, I could see that, in my family, oh, there's nothing I can do about it. It's just in my genes. And epigenetics, like you mentioned earlier, is proving that wrong. Like we don't necessarily need to express that gene, and with lifestyle choices, with or without plants, but raising our vibration in ways that we know are healthy. And that includes our relationships of people that we choose to be in our lives to help us move forward. Other conscious seekers that we can take this journey with. Because like you said, it doesn't end. It's not like we'll have some, final point and then like, well, that's it, I'm done. There's always going to be another layer and another layer. And I think that's kind of exciting because that's all the more opportunity that I get to know myself. And then I also get to relate to others in that deeper way.
Absolutely. It reminds me, I mean, just, and this might be a whole other Be the Love episode, but, but I am like, during this journey, I came up against a part of me that feels that stuck energy. Right. And so pushing forward, that's like the next layer. Like I feel this energy there and I'm like getting really, really curious about what it is because, there's no destination. It's all a process. And I'm,
right.
And I don't know if it's the ancestral or if it's part of my own energy, right? But it's about getting curious and feeling that where I feel that in my body and whether or not it's mine or my ancestral, it's my responsibility to begin really looking at this so I can move through the energy. And, I'm really excited to explore this, really scared because this is also, as we're doing this work, it does open up, that those ego defenses and the experiences of, an ego death, right? Even every layer you go through is part of that ego death. And that can be ancestral trauma or your own, but it's really recognizing that, there might be blocks, there might be that resistance, and that might show up to this healing, but it's so powerful. And we don't need to go right into the trauma. We can really focus on recognizing the resistance. Let's feel that first, because that layer feels a little safer than going right into the depths of the soul and the ego and, it's just gonna like put up these like this big fight, which I've experienced, but but I'm like, okay, ego, I can handle whatever's coming up, right? Like it's gonna be okay. It's safe. It's safe now. It may not have felt safe back then. It might not have felt safe for our ancestors to, speak their truth, but it's safe for me to go through the feeling of this and to, begin helping release that from the trauma that they experienced and that, that I may have experienced along the way as well.
Yeah, very true. And I love how you say, I'm curious. Instead of, I think a lot of people could say, oh, that sounds really scary to dive into that dark place. And I think that's where you've done a lot of the grounding work. And, so many of the things that we've talked about of, really nourishing self-care to feel grounded, to feel like, yes, I do deserve to heal these deeper layers of myself. And I would definitely encourage listeners, if that isn't in place for you, like have that support that you need, ground yourself, be good to your body. Breathe so deep. You just expand from, all levels, high nutrition. I mean, so many of the things that we've talked about to raise your vibration, because I do think ancestral healing is this like deep dive into the unknown. And I love how you say, I'm curious about that. Like, that's when you're ready. When someone's going, oh my gosh, that freaks me out so bad. I'm like, well, then it's like a not yet. And that's okay. We don't have to do the really deep, scary dive if we don't feel like we're grounded enough, embodying what we need, that safety, before we do dive in.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And thank you so much for listening to Be the Love podcast. If you have enjoyed listening to our show, please share the love by sharing it with your family and friends, giving us a 5-star written review on iTunes or Spotify, or liking us on Facebook. And if you haven't heard, we are so excited to announce the Awaken Your Soul Costa Rica retreat on November 6th through the 12th, 2023. We would absolutely love to have you join us for a beautiful and vibration-raising experience. Please check out the webpage with details and registration in the show notes. And I am Brenda Carey, and as a holistic healer and coach, I offer online programs to guide people in their sacred path to vibrant health and well-being. Check out my website at sacredpathyogaandreiki.com.
And I'm Stacy Musial. I am a psychotherapist specializing in whole person, deep soul healing. You can find out more about my work, my book, and programs at awakenyouремpoweredsoul.com. And you can check out our links in the show notes. So please consider supporting our mission to awaken our souls with a monthly donation that helps us with the operating costs of this podcast so we can continue to spread the love. To contribute, please visit our Patreon website at patreon.com/Be the Love Podcast. And stay tuned for more episodes being released on Mondays at 5:55 a.m. Mountain Time.